So now let's work on the internal implementation. The first thing we're going to want to do is set up the segue. So when I press the Create Account button, we're going to want to go ahead and segue to the Create Account View Controller. So if we select our segue and look at the Attributes Inspector, we want to remember that our identifier is named to Create Account View Controller Segue. The same way, we also want to just remember what the name of our segue to our view controller is, and we see that it's to View Controller Segue. So with that in mind, let's go ahead and implement the logic so that when we press our Create Account button, we're able to segue to Create Account, and when we press in Login, we'll be able to go to our login screen. So we're going to go into the signinviewcontroller.m file, and we're going to go ahead and add this functionality inside of the Create Account bar button item pressed method, as well as the login button pressed. So let's call our segue here. We're going to say self perform segue with identifier, and let's go ahead and use our identifier here. So we're going to say to create account view controller segue, and the sender will go ahead and just pass our sender in here. And what does that mean? Well, when we use the method prepare for segue, which occurs right before the segue occurs, and allows us to set information for the destination view controller, and we've seen that a few times in the past, it has an argument sender. And where does that argument come from? Well, it comes from the argument that we pass in, and it just happens that the naming convention happens to be the same thing, and what we're going to do is we're going to pass in the UI bar button item that we created on our navigation bar. So that's the item we're going to pass in and be able to access. So let's also call a segue in our login button press. So we can say self perform segue with identifier, and we can say to view controller segue. And it's very important that you're careful about case here. And let's go ahead and pass in our sender again. This time notice that it's a UI button and it's not a UI bar button item that we're going to pass into this method as an argument. So let's go ahead and make sure this works. Make sure you have iPhone Retina 4-inch screen selected. And when my iPhone simulator loads up, we'll be able to press on the Create Account bar button item. We notice that we'll be able to go to our Create Account. Notice that the Cancel button and the Create Account buttons don't do anything yet. We haven't set up the protocols for them yet. And if I stop and rerun my application, I press in the Login button, we notice that we go to our login screen. So both of these segues are working properly, which is great.